Fair snake people stood in silence along the banks. On the river floated their fallen, wrapped in cloth, their faces covered in fine white silk. Each body rested atop a wooden raft laced with herbs, with small clay jars placed by their feet. These jars carried the sacred oils and whispers of loved ones, gifts for the journey to the next life. Eli stood at the edge of the water. His face was drawn, his eyes were red. This was the hardest thing he had ever done. They had hoped for victory, but instead, they came to say goodbye. He lifted his hand. The crowd stilled even more. Eli's voice was quiet, but it reached everyone. Today, we do what our people have always done. We return our dead to the goddess. We do not bury them in soil. We do not trap their spirits in stone. We give them back to the water, so they may return to the goddess. He turned and looked down at the floating pyres. She is the beginning of all snakes. She is the mother, the coiled warmth in the earth, the voice that whispers in our blood. It is to her that we dedicate these souls today. He paused, breathing in the silence. Goddess of the serpent, receive them. Let their spirits slither gently into your arms. Hold them in your coils. Wash away their pain. And when the time is right, breathe them into new bodies. Let them be born again. Let them rise again. He turned back to his people. We are hurting, he said, softer now. But this is not the end of us, because they are not gone. Not truly. They are just ahead of us now, on the path, waiting. You are watching the Tales of the Savannah. Subscribe and be part of the tribe. Now let's get back to the story. He stepped aside, he opened the scroll of names. His hands trembled only once. He cleared his throat. We say their names because to forget is to lose them twice. He looked at the first name. Ezekiel. The people answered, strong and in one voice. We remember his name. Bathsheba. We remember her name. Joash. We remember his name. Elijah. We remember his name. Micah. We remember his name. Abigail. We remember her name. Abner. We remember his name. Joshua. We remember his name. He reached the last two. He opened his mouth, but no sound came. His hand shook. His lips trembled. Daniel stepped beside him and placed a hand on his shoulder. Eli nodded once. Slowly. He steadied himself. He tried again. Gideon, he said, his voice cracking. We remember his name. One last name. The hardest. He looked at it. Then looked away. Daniel leaned close and whispered, She would want you to say it. Eli nodded. Then he lifted his head. He wiped his face with the back of his sleeve, and with all the strength he had left, he spoke. Hannah. There was a pause, a tearful breath. Then the people answered, low and full of sorrow, We remember her name. A soft wind passed over the river. The leaves rustled as if whispering their own goodbye. Eli took the torch from the sacred flame. He stepped to the edge, where the closest raft floated. He dropped the fire gently onto the dried herbs. Flames bloomed. One by one, others stepped forward and lit the pyres. The river became a line of fire and smoke, carrying the bodies downstream. Some people fell to their knees, others lifted their hands in prayer. No one spoke again. The snake people watched in silence as their loved ones drifted toward the horizon, into the arms of the goddess. And as the flames faded into the distance, the night fell, and with it, the first quiet hope of healing. Naomi had not left her room in days. She hardly ate. She didn't speak much. Most days she just sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the wall or at the floor. Sometimes she would cry. Other times the pain just sat inside her, heavy like a stone. Cabo would come in, gently coaxing her to eat. Just a little, he would say. For the baby. For your strength. Sometimes she listened. Other times she didn't. She was tired, not just in her body, but in her soul. To carry a child, knowing you had already lost it, that one day someone would come and take your baby away. That one day, the price of peace would come knocking. It made her feel hollow. She understood, deep down, why Cabo had done it. They had won the war. People were alive because of the pact. She had seen the battlefield with her own eyes, the fallen, the blood, the ruin. Perhaps she would have made the same choice had she been asked. But she hadn't been asked. And maybe that's what hurt the most. So she stayed in her room. She slept too much? Then, not at all. She couldn't bear to see anyone. Couldn't bear to face the world. A week passed, then one evening Cabo came to the door again. This time his voice was firm. "Naomi," he said, "you need to come outside. The hunters are asking about you. They want to see your face." She didn't reply. "You are the first lady of the hunters," he said. "You are carrying the child that saved their lives. We have just survived a battle, and they need your strength. Please." She looked at him. His eyes were kind, but tired. She knew he was right. She also knew she couldn't stay hidden forever. So she got up, slowly, carefully. She washed, brushed her hair, put on a soft wrap, and stepped out into the cool evening air. The dining hall was lit with soft firelight. Laughter and voices filled the air until the doors opened. Naomi stepped inside, and the room fell silent. Every fork, every voice, every sound stopped. They had heard the story, the truth of it. They knew what she carried. They knew what it had cost her. Naomi stood in the doorway, unsure if she should go back. Then someone stood, a young hunter. "Thank you, Naomi," he said softly. "We honor your sacrifice." Another stood. "Thank you," she said, "for saving us." And then more rose, one by one. Faces from the battle, faces she had fought beside. Men, women, elders, the wounded, the brave. They came to her. Some touched her hand, some held her shoulders, some bowed their heads in respect. "Thank you. You are brave. You are not alone. We will never forget what you gave." Naomi couldn't speak, her eyes filled with tears. She had not expected this. She had not known they truly saw her. By the time she reached Cabo at the high table, her chest was shaking. She cried quietly, and for the first time in many days they were not tears of sorrow, but of something softer, something warmer. Maybe it was gratitude, maybe relief. Cabo stood and took her hand. He didn't say anything. He just smiled, a sad, gentle smile. She looked at him and smiled back, for the first time in a long time. And it was enough. They sat down together and they ate, slowly, quietly. Naomi looked around the room, hunters, laughing again, the sound of life returning, and she thought, maybe this was worth it. Maybe there will be a future after all, and for the first time she believed it. Asa wiped the tears from her face quickly when she saw Vusi approaching. Her heart was still heavy from her talk with Ziva, his marriage proposal still lingering in her chest like a storm cloud. "My tribe, I saw your comments after the last episode. Many of you were asking if the Ziva in this story is the same Ziva from our Mermaids, Witches and Lion People series. The answer is no, they are not the same person. The Ziva you see here in Snake People vs. Hunters is actually an ancestor of the Ziva you know from the other story. They share the same name, the same bloodline, but they live in completely different timelines, hundreds, even thousands of years apart. And that's something important to remember as we continue. This story is about bloodlines and timelines. Some events happen long before others. Some characters are ancestors, some are descendants. So while the names may be familiar, they are not the same people living at the same time. So as we move forward, keep that in mind. Same blood, different timelines. She wasn't ready to face anyone, not yet. But Vusi's face was tight, serious. His steps were fast, like a storm was already inside him. "Vusi," she said softly, trying to steady her voice. "It's late. What is it? He didn't bow. He didn't greet her. My queen, he said, his voice clipped. I came to ask about my mother. She is not in the camp. Where is she? Asa's heart dropped. Vusi's eyes searched hers, fierce and sharp. He was trying to stay calm. She could see it in the way his hands stayed still, clenched tightly at his sides. She left, Asa said gently. Tendai sent her a message. She went to meet him. Vusi blinked. Who? Tendai, Asa said again. Your half-brother. He went still. The hunter, he asked. The air between them changed. It turned cold. Vusi's fists clenched tighter. His eyes didn't blink. His mouth stayed shut, but his breathing grew heavy. Asa froze. She went to meet a hunter, he said slowly. While my father was dying in the forest, she was out there, playing family with hunters. Asa took a step toward him. Vusi, you must understand. Where did she go? His voice was calm, but it shook with rage. She said she was meeting him in the village. That was a few days ago. He didn't answer. He only turned slightly, eyes looking toward the trees. Vusi, please, Asa said. Don't go like this. Take someone with you. We'll send a group. But he was done listening. His body shifted. Scales rippled across his skin. His arms and legs stretched and coiled. His mouth didn't speak anymore. His eyes did, and they were burning. In one powerful motion, Vusi transformed. A massive dark snake rose in front of her, muscles tight, eyes glowing like fire. He looked at her one last time. There was respect, but no softness. Then he turned and vanished into the trees with terrifying speed. Asa stood frozen. The wind whipped through the camp. She didn't breathe for a long moment. She didn't need to ask what he planned to do. Vusi was going to find his mother, find Tendai, and if the universe allowed, find Sia too. And when he did, only the gods knew what he would do, but his rage was real, and it was leading him straight into the dark. Layla burst through the door like a storm. You missed it, she shouted, arms in the air. Oh, you both missed it. Zarya and Malika sat up straighter, grinning already. We've been waiting for you, Zarya said, sipping her tea. Now talk. Layla didn't even sit down. She paced the room like a woman possessed. It was like watching two gods going to war. Tendai and Mandla, shirtless, might I add, standing in the ring, eyes locked, breathing hard. She paused for dramatic effect. Their muscles were popping, ladies. I swear you could see every vein. Malika covered her mouth, laughing. Layla! I'm serious, Layla insisted. Tendai was glowing in the sun, like copper fire. And Mandla. Ooh, that man has biceps. The kind that makes a girl rethink all her life choices. Zarya shook her head, chuckling. This one will get us in trouble. Layla kept going, eyes wide with the memory. They circled each other like animals. And when they started fighting, it wasn't just punches, it was personal. The kind of fight you feel in your bones. Grunts, sweat flying, fists landing. Oh, and that sweat, girls, glistening on their bodies like honey in the sun. Malaika held her breath. Are they okay? Did someone get hurt? Layla waved her hand, brushing off the worry. They're alive, if that's what you mean. But oh, the rage, the power. Tendai came in like fire. He looked Mandla right in the eye and said, This is my family, stay away. No way, Zarya whispered, eyes sparkling. What did Mandla say? Oh, he didn't hold back, Layla said, turning to her like a storyteller before a fire. He was like, This isn't your family. It could be mine. She paused, then flung her arms wide. Okay, maybe those weren't the exact words, but close enough. Zarya burst out laughing, but Malika's face stayed worried. Layla, where are they hurt? Did they bleed? Who pulled them apart? Layla grinned like a cat who had just caught a mouse. Now this is the best part. You will not believe it. What? Zarya and Malika said together. Cabo, Layla whispered, eyes wide. He came out of his office, strong, powerful, thunder in his face. His voice dropped. Enough! And the whole courtyard froze. I'm telling you, even the trainers who were trying to break them apart couldn't do it. But one word from Cabo, and boom, silence. Just like that. Even the birds stopped singing. That's how intense it was. Zaria and Malaika laughed. Layla giggled. That man knows how to command a moment. Malaika looked down, her heart heavy. Did they say anything after? Layla's voice softened a bit. No, they just stood there, breathing heavy, bloody, broken. Cabo sent them both away, said they needed time to cool off. Zaria leaned back with a low whistle. So, who won? Layla shrugged, lips curled in mischief. Nobody. It ended in fire and silence. But I'll tell you one thing. This is the fight they'll talk about for years. Malaika stood up quickly, her heart beating fast. I should go, she said, already reaching for her shawl. I need to check if they're okay. Zaria grabbed her arm before she could take another step. No, she said firmly. Sit down. But, Malaika said, worried. Zaria's eyes narrowed. They're hunters, love. If they're not dead, they'll heal. Malaika looked at her, confused. Zaria leaned in, her voice calm but sharp. You want to check if they're okay? Zaria said, softer now. That's sweet and childish. This is where your lessons begin. Haven't I taught you anything? You don't run to them. You don't chase, you don't fix. They fought for you. Let them feel what that means. Malaika looked away, pain washing over her. Let them come to you. Let them knock. Let them wonder. Malaika sat back down slowly. Zaria gave a small smile. You're not the girl who cries behind closed doors anymore. You're the prize now. The storm. The one they bleed for. So act like it. She held Malaika's hand. And now, my dear, we begin. The forest was still. As the horses moved deeper into centaur territory, Django remembered the stories, the ones whispered to him by his father, the ones his grandfather had passed down with firelight in his eyes and grief in his voice. It is time to share that story with you too, my dear tribe. The story of the pact. A long time ago, before the name Django was ever spoken in the wind, there lived a mighty leader, Cabo the Great. He led the hunters during a time of great battles. The snake people were rising to reclaim back their land. The hunters were strong, but not strong enough. They needed help, and there was only one kind of creature that could help. The first hunters, the centaurs, half man, half horse, warriors of the wild, spirits of the in-between. But the centaurs did not come easy. They lived deep in the forbidden forest. They had their own ways, their own pain, and their own secrets. Cabo the Great found them, and among them he met their leader, Barakan the Wise, and he told Cabo the truth. We are fading, Barakan said. The beast in us is growing. The man in us is dying. The centaurs had once been more balanced, but as years passed, their human blood weakened. They had tried to join with humans before. They had taken human women, but their wombs were not strong enough. The births tore them apart from the inside. So they tried something else. They took human men. But that too failed. Their seed was not strong, their blood too thin, their bones too soft. The children born from them did not survive. The centaurs were desperate. They needed a bloodline strong enough to carry their legacy. They needed a human line with the strength of beasts and the mind of gods. And then they came the hunters. The hunters had muscle, discipline, blood thick with spirit and strength. Barakan looked at Cabo and saw hope. So the two leaders struck a sacred agreement. The centaurs would fight for the hunters. They would defeat the snake people and bring peace to the land. And in return, they would take a son. Not just one, but any son from Cabo's bloodline, as and when the need rose again. Not every generation, not every firstborn. But when the time came, the answer would be yes. Always yes. The pact was sealed in blood and in spirit. The war was won. The snake people were pushed back, and the hunters were saved. And so from time to time the centaurs came quietly, a shadow in the forest, a whisper at the gate. They would take a boy from the line of Cabo. They would raise him in their sacred valley, teach him both the ways of man and beast. He would not be killed, he would not be harmed. He would become a father of new centaurs, the bridge that held the balance. He would not return, but he would matter. When they asked for the firstborn, the hunters wept. But they never refused, because refusing meant the end. The centaurs would fall into madness. They would regress to beasts. The forest would rise. That was the story. Django stood at the edge of the centaur's city, and he could hardly believe his eyes. It was deep in the jungle, but it didn't feel wild. It felt alive. Trees rose high like towers, their roots shaped into paths and homes. Thick vines wrapped around great halls, not choking them, but holding them, like threads of silk. Water flowed through the streets like gentle rivers, and the sounds of birds mixed with the low hum of something older, something sacred. Lights shimmered through leaves, not fire, not magic, something in between. It was beautiful, it was powerful, and it was old. The heart of the city opened up before them, a wide circle carved into stone and earth, and at its center stood the great centaur leader, Tharion. He was tall, his body strong and firm like an old oak. His lower half was the horse of legend, sleek, dark, powerful. His upper half noble and commanding. "Django," he said, his voice deep and strong, "you have come, and you have honored the pact." Django bowed his head. As agreed, Tatenda, his son, did the same. Tharion stepped forward. "Long ago, before your time, before your father's time, the great Barakan made a pact with Cabo the Great. In return for our swords, for our loyalty, for our blood, we would be given one of his, a child, a firstborn son, from his line. You stand here now," Tharion said, "as Cabo the Great's blood, and you offer your firstborn son." Django's heart skipped. Firstborn? That wasn't right. He turned slightly toward Tatenda, who stood tall beside him. This baby wasn't his first son, Tatenda was. This newborn was his second son. There was a pause. Tatenda's brow furrowed. He said nothing, but he looked sideways at his father, then back at Tharion. Django opened his mouth, unsure whether to speak, but Tharion was still looking at the baby. His face didn't change, but his eyes held something he shouldn't have said. He would not say that Tatenda was not Django's blood. He would not say that the centaurs, with their deep knowledge of bloodlines and magic, always knew. He had already said too much. Tharion turned to a centaur woman. She stepped forward, her mane of silver hair long and silky. She held out her arms for the child. Tatenda froze. He didn't want to let go. This was his little brother, and it wasn't fair. He kissed the baby's forehead, his heart full of questions he couldn't ask, and pain he didn't understand. Tatenda looked at Django, a question in his eyes. Did he want to say goodbye too? Django couldn't speak. He just shook his head. He was not good with goodbyes. He would cry, and these were not the people he wanted to cry in front of, not in front of a leader, not in front of strangers. So he held it in, kept his face strong, and shook his head once more. Tatenda understood. He turned, kissed the baby's forehead again. He would never see him again, never know who he would become. Would he remember them? Would he know where he came from? No, because he would grow up centaur. Home for him would be here. He then handed him over to the centaur woman. She took the child gently and without a word disappeared into the city. Tharion stepped closer. "Stay," he said gently. "You've come far. Rest, eat. Tonight, we celebrate. You are part of us. Our blood runs together. It has for centuries." Django nodded, his face blank. "As you wish." Tatenda said nothing. But the silence between them, between father and son, was full. Something had cracked, and neither of them knew what. But Tharion did, and he said nothing more. Nandi and Diallo stood before the guardian of the forest. Her cloak flowed like mist. Her feet didn't touch the ground. Her hair moved with the wind, though the trees around them were still as statues. Her eyes, they burned gold. The baby had stopped crying. The guardian stepped forward. Her power moved through the air like heat. Birds had stopped singing. Even the insects were silent. She stretched out her hand. Diallo looked at Nandi. She gave a small nod, her face pale, her body trembling. Slowly, Diallo handed the baby over. The guardian took her, gentle but firm. She walked to the center of the circle, a patch of earth covered in moss, surrounded by ancient stones. She laid the baby down. And then it began. The wind rose. The trees began to move, slowly, as if they were bowing. Golden light swirled from the ground, rising like smoke. The guardian lifted her arms high, and her voice filled the forest, and loud, clear, powerful. Forest god, keeper of the roots, the branches, the winds, and the waters, I give you this child. I dedicate her to you, to the spirit of the wild, to the memory of the forest, to the women who came before her, to the ancient path of guardians, from the first guardian to me, and now to her. When my time ends, when I fade, when I return to the soil and to my sisters in the afterlife, she will rise. She will carry the guardian knowledge, guardian strength, guardian spirit. She will hear the whispers of the trees and know the will of the wind. Today, she receives the gift, and the forest receives her. As the guardian spoke, the wind howled louder, wrapping around them in circles. The leaves turned golden. The baby's eyes opened. They glowed, bright as fireflies, and then silence. The light disappeared. The wind stopped. The baby blinked and smiled. The guardian knelt and picked her up. She pressed her forehead gently to the baby's. Then she walked back. Nandi held her breath. She wasn't ready to say goodbye. But the guardian stopped in front of her and held the baby out. "Take her," she said. Nandi's hands trembled. "But I thought—" "She is yours for now," said the guardian. "You will raise her as a hunter. She will laugh like the others. She will run like the others. But she will never be them." Nandi stared, confused, her heart in her throat. The guardian's eyes softened just for a moment. "She is different," she said. "When she is old enough, I will call her back. I will come to her in dreams. I will show her who she is. But until then, she is yours, fully. Raise her well." Nandi took the baby in her arms. Tears filled her eyes. She didn't know what to say. She kissed her daughter's cheek, her tears falling onto soft skin. "Thank you," Diallo said, his voice low. The guardian nodded. Then, without a sound, without a step, she vanished, melted into the wind. The forest exhaled. Birds sang again. Leaves rustled softly. But nothing would ever be the same. Nandi held her baby close, a mother, but for a time, and her daughter, a child of two worlds, a hunter and a guardian. And that, my dear tribe, brings us to the end of yet another episode in our Snake People vs. Hunters series. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. In this week's episode, the Snake People say goodbye to their loved ones who died in battle. They speak their names out loud, because to not say their names is to forget them twice. It is a sad but beautiful farewell. They send their people off with love and pray the goddess welcomes them into her arms. Meanwhile, Naomi is deep in sadness. She stays inside, too heartbroken to face the world. But Cabo speaks to her gently, asking her to come out. Her people need to see her. When she finally steps outside, something amazing happens. One by one, people come up to her and thank her. They say they are alive because of her. They understand her sacrifice. For the first time in days, Naomi feels hope. She is still grieving, but she is also grateful. Far away in a different time and place, Asa walks away from Ziva. But then she sees someone coming toward her. It's Vusi. He wants to know where his mother is. Asa tells him she went to meet Tendai. Vusi is angry. His body shifts and grows until he becomes a huge snake, and he slithers away fast. We all know where he's going. Back at camp, Layla tells the story of Tendai and Mandla's fight, in her usual dramatic way, making the women laugh. But Zarya holds Malika back from going to check on the men. She says it is not her turn to chase. They must come to her. She is learning to play the game of life better now, so she doesn't lose the same way she did the first time. And in the present day, Django finally reaches centaur territory. We learn the full story of the ancient pact, but Django is amazed by how beautiful the land is. He meets the centaur leader, Tharion. Tharion accepts the baby and says something shocking. The child is Django's first son. Everyone is confused, but the baby is taken into the city. They are invited to stay. They are family, after all. Deep in the forest, Nandi gives the baby to the Guardian. The Guardian welcomes her and begins a powerful ritual. The baby opens her eyes. They shine like golden fire. The ritual has worked. The goddess of the forest has accepted her. Then the Guardian tells Nandi something unexpected. She must raise the child. Nandi is surprised, but she feels joy. Even though this is a happy moment and some secrets are still hiding, we'll let her enjoy her peace. For now. What will happen next, we'll just have to wait and see. Until then, stay wild, stay curious, and stay ready for what's to come. Want to support the channel and become an even bigger part of our tribe? You can join for as little as the cost of a coffee each month. Your support helps me continue creating the content you love, but of course, just having you here is already more than enough. Thank you for being part of this journey. A warm and heartfelt thank you to all the amazing tribe members who have chosen to join and support this incredible journey. Your belief in this channel means the world to me, and I'm so glad to have you along for the ride. And as always, thank you for watching our story, and we hope you enjoyed it. What lessons did you draw from this story? Share your thoughts with us in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe and be part of the tribe. Thank you for watching The Tales of the Savannah. We will see you next time in the Savannah.